Chapter 2090. Yi Feng-ru was horrified. But he didn't even have the strength to struggle. He could tell that Yi Qing-luo hadn't released her full strength. But, even if she didn't use her full strength, she did the same to him. He didn't even have the strength to resist. How strong was this slut? Yi Feng-ru couldn't figure it out. Although Yi Qing-luo's mother was also a cultivator, but she was just a weak girl who only knew how to rely on Yi Tianquang. How could she give birth to such a pervert like Yi Qing-luo? Paw! The crisp sound of a slap resounded through the quiet garden. Yi Qing-luo's slap landed on Yi Feng-ru's face. Her expression was cold, her charming eyes were suffused with a trace of coldness. Yi Feng-ru, if you insult my mother again, I will give you a slap, or give you a punch. In the end, she added another sentence, curse in your heart, I will still hit you. Yi Feng-ru's face was swollen, blood overflowed from the corner of his mouth. He stared fiercely at Yi Qing-luo, his eyes filled with hatred. She could hear him cursing in his heart. I can't hear you, but from your appearance, it seems like you are cursing me, cursing my mother, so I will hit you. Yi Qing-luo smiled, completely unreasonable. Immediately, she raised her hand and slapped the other side of his face. I think, you are cursing me in your heart again. F***ck. Yi Feng-ru's ears were ringing from the slap, his cheeks were burning with pain. He cursed through gritted teeth. Yi Qing-luo raised her brows, smiling. But, her slender little hand, clenched into a fist, unceremoniously punched his stomach, fiercely. Ah! Yi Feng-ru screamed, only feeling that his abdomen was pierced through, his internal organs seemed to be ruptured. His whole body fell straight to the ground. Yi Qing-luo tilted her head and looked at him with a sneer. Didn't you think you can be arrogant after poisoning me? Come on, continue to be arrogant for me to see. Yi Feng-ru had no strength to move. Both his hands were broken by Yi Qing-luo. Under Yi Qing-luo's earlier punch, the slightest movement of her internal organs would cause a heart-wrenching pain. He couldn't move. He didn't dare to move. Hearing Yi Qing-luo's words, he forced his eyes open. He had lost too much blood, and the pain was unbearable. He could no longer see the scene in front of him clearly. In his haze, he could only see the red-clothed girl standing in front of him. Her eyes were filled with mockery as she stared at him unblinkingly. All of a sudden, Yi Feng-ru felt as if something was tugging at his heart. It looked like it was trying to grab onto something. But in the next instant, his vision went black. Something surged in his mind. When his eyes regained clarity, once again, another slender and delicate figure appeared in front of him. This was Qian. Yi Feng-ru's cloudy eyes gradually emitted a black stream of air. His lips trembled slightly. He kept repeating the word Qian. He saw Zi Qian. He saw Zi Qian's tragic death. He saw Yi Qing-luo standing beside Zi Qian, who was being devoured by the poisonous worms, laughing out loud and wantonly. The black energy in his eyes grew thicker. The malevolent expression on his face became more and more twisted and terrifying. Yi Qing-luo, don't be complacent too early. This time round, the winner is still uncertain. Yi Feng-ru didn't know where the strength came from, but he suddenly slammed his palm on the ground. His body was like an arrow leaving the bow, scurrying into midair. Boom, boom, boom. At the same time, a few deafening energy fluctuations were heard, enveloping the entire garden. Chapter 2091. Gravel splattered and dust billowed. The various powerhouses' representatives who had fallen onto the ground due to being poisoned were covered with tiny wounds after being splattered by those gravel. Some of the stronger powerhouses' representatives regained their consciousness under this kind of piercing pain. They wanted to avoid it, but the feeling of powerlessness made them unable to move at all. So it's like this. The young lady's clear voice, which seemed to be in deep thoughts, was transmitted into everyone's ears. The various powerhouses' representatives mustered up their last breath and looked towards the direction of the voice. Under the encirclement of gravel and dust, they saw a young lady dressed in red, still standing on the high stage, raising her head and looking towards a certain direction in the sky. It was Yi Qing Luo. It was her. She was fine. She wasn't poisoned like them. Everyone's hearts inexplicably calmed down. As long as Yi Qing Luo was still around, they would definitely be fine. Not knowing why, the other party was obviously a 15-year-old young lady, but they had developed such a strong reliance on this 15-year-old young lady. Swish, 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 accompanied by gravel splattering, the sound of the ground shaking. They saw the surroundings of the garden, which had been leveled to the ground, as cultivators dressed in black night clothing scuttled out. One after another, there were at least 100 over people surrounding the high stage which Yi Qing Luo was standing on, tightly encircled. And those 30 to 40 people who had originally fallen onto the ground also climbed up. They laughed maniacally as they walked behind Yi Fengru, as they stared at Yi Qing Luo viciously, as though they were looking at the meat on the chopping board. Yi Qing Luo recognized these people at one glance. Weren't they the bunch who kept singing a different tune to the crowd, trying to incite the crowd's rhythm, and kept humiliating Yi Qing Luo? Yi Fengru laughed loudly, and as he laughed, he coughed violently. Even after coughing out blood, he still couldn't stop laughing. Yi Qing Luo, did you really think that I didn't have any tricks up my sleeves? So what if they are sky mystic overlords? Against them, can you still survive? Yi Qing Luo didn't respond to Yi Fengru's words. She narrowed her eyes, as she carefully sized up the rows of black-robed men in front of her, who were obviously well-trained. This sizing up made Yi Qing Luo had a huge shock. These killers, over 100 of them, were all Earth Mystic grade and above. The highest profound rank has already reached the 8th level of the Earth profound rank. Where did these experts come from? Yi Qing Luo had long guessed that it was impossible for Yi Fengru to come to the succession ceremony alone. The group of murderous killers who were constantly singing a different tune were Yi Fengru's men. But what Yi Qing Luo did not expect was, apart from the group of assassins in the field, and there were so many teams with such powerful strength, it was impossible for Yi Fengru to find so many powerful helpers. Behind him, someone must be helping him. Or perhaps, it was exploitation. Profound practitioners of the Earth profound realm. In the Nirvana realm, he could be said to be the target of all the major forces and clans. That person was able to train so many Earth Xian practitioners into such a well-trained team. From this, it could be seen that the strength of that person could not be underestimated. Yi Qing Luo vigilantly searched for the leader among the 100 of them. However, he swept his gaze across everyone. He didn't see anyone who looked like the boss. Chapter 2092. This time round, the historians won't be coming. Yi Fengru gave an eerie sneer. Of course, if you still have the ability, and unleash the power which exceeds Nirvana realm's limit, then there's a possibility to summon the historians. His reply made Yi Qing Luo's heart shiver. Her question just now was just a test. She really managed to find out the truth. These were all Earth profound cultivators and above, not people from Nirvana realm. They came from Nirvana realm and above, a certain realm cultivator. Previously from Old Man Tsang, Dmo Xian and Yi Qian and the others, Yi Qing Luo had a rough understanding of the different realms' levels. Nirvana realm should be the lowest realm among all the realms. Those realms outside of Nirvana realm, such as the Dark Forces, Godless Island and the Upper Realm etc. The combined power of these places was much higher than Nirvana realm by many times. These 100 over black-robed men were not from Nirvana realm, and were all Earth profound cultivators, so she wasn't surprised at all. But she wasn't surprised. She was curious. Curious which realm these people were from outside of Nirvana realm. The only thing she was sure of was, these 100 people were absolutely not from the dark forces. They didn't have the profound yin chi from the dark forces on them. The only common point with the dark forces was, these black-robed men's imposing manner was the same as the dark forces, disgusting. Yi-Ching Luo even probed out a question. Yi-Feng Ru knew that she was unable to use the power of her profound jade heart. More accurately, he knew that her profound energy was obstructed. He knew that she couldn't release the power which could attract the Heaven Tao law. Looked like these people had done a thorough investigation on her. Yi-Ching Luo squinted her eyes slightly, as her lips curled into a teasing cold arc, raising her brows at Yi-Feng Ru. Your preparation work is so sufficient, looks like you've made up your mind to deal with me. Yi-Feng Ru sneered, at least you know your own limits. He knew Yi-Ching Luo's sinister and cunning, dragging the time would definitely give her a chance to turn the tables. He bellowed furiously, all of you, go kill Yi-Ching Luo. The rest of you, follow me to kidnap all these old fogies away. Those killers who were originally mixed in with the guests laughed sinisterly as they raised the weapons in their hands, charging towards Yi-Ching Luo. Immediately following that, those 100 over-earth profound cultivators also unleashed their valiant imposing manner as they surrounded Yi-Ching Luo. Yi-Ching Luo could tell from these people's attacks earlier. The Earth Xian experts of the Nirvana realm were not on the same level as these people. Their battle techniques, attack speed, and aura far surpassed those of the Nirvana realm. Over 100 people swarmed forward. Even if she was a Sky Xian supreme martial artist, she would not be able to hold on for long. Sister! Yi-Feng Yu shouted in panic. He was just about to ride on Shiju and rush down. A beam of dark light blocked his way. Yi-Feng Ru's malevolent face appeared in front of Yi-Feng Yu. My good eighth brother, we've never crossed hands before. Today, second brother shall see, after not seeing you for so many days, just what kind of realm has eighth brother grown to. Yi-Feng Ru's palm wind moved, as an irresistible profound energy directly pressed down on Yi-Feng Yu's face. Yi-Feng Yu's expression congealed, as his legs tightened on Shiju, as he backhanded a palm strike. Both palms met, as the air instantly exploded into bursts of profound waves. Chapter 2093. Yi-Feng Ru looked at Yi-Feng Yu in astonishment. You're already at the Earth Profound Realm. Yi-Feng Yu's face was a bit pale. He placed one hand on Shiju's back and tried hard to adjust his breathing. Second brother, not everyone is standing in the same spot. No matter what happens, you should look forward. If you keep binding yourself and living in the past, you will never be able to walk out. He was hinting at something. Yi-Feng Ru naturally understood. After second brother kills that little slut Yi-Ching Luo, second brother will look forward properly. Yi-Feng Ru's eyes were covered with black chi, a piercingly cold light flashed. He pounced at Yi-Feng Yu again. Yi-Feng Yu furrowed his brows and suppressed the discomfort in his body. He evaded Yi-Feng Ru's attack. Second brother, don't be so stubborn. Don't you know that you're not only destroying yourself, you're also destroying the Three Springs sect? Without Chanchan, I have lost everything. Other than Chanchan, I don't want anything else. It would be even better if they were destroyed. Destroying it is even better. Yi-Feng Ru howled madly. Yi-Feng Yu's complexion became increasingly pale. Even his lips had become sickly pale. Yi-Ching Luo, who was surrounded by over 100 top exponents, started to find it strenuous. The problem with the profound heart jade caused her profound strength to only be able to be controlled at the border of the sky profound realm. A profound sky sovereign expert did indeed have the ability to fight against 100. However, facing these high-level profound practitioners that came from other planes, Even if she could release the power of her profound jade heart without restraint, she might not be able to gain the slightest bit of advantage in the hands of these 100 or so people. Not to mention that his strength was currently being suppressed by the profound jade heart. Yi Qing Luo's situation was getting more and more dangerous. Too many things had happened recently. Yi Qing Luo didn't even have the time to refine the pills. Because of this, the returning Heaven Yuan Serene Grass pill was not refined. The few sacred beasts in her family were still in a state of growth. Now, only Shi Ju was able to fight. However, Shi Ju was protecting Yi Fengyu. Could it be, asking Old Man Tsang to appear and help? Yi Qing Luo pursed her pink lips, her heart was in a tangle. She was still unable to identify the origins of these people. If they rashly let Old Man Tsang appear, once he attracted the attention of these people, the secret of the Azure Dew bracelet might not be able to be kept. Bang! Just as Yi Qing Luo was pondering over this, a person's weapon had already landed right in front of her. In front of Yi Qing Luo, there was a flash of saber light and sword shadows. Yi Qing Luo flicked her fingers and the glower flame fan collided with that weapon. Gotcha! The man's weapon broke. Sharp wind blades shot out from the glowing flame fan and sliced through the neck of the attacker without any hesitation. Yi Qing Luo didn't stop at all as a thick profound energy burst forth from the glower flame fan, forcing those people who were surrounding her to retreat. She got a chance to catch her breath and looked up at the two figures flying in the sky. Yi Fengyu rode on Shi Ju, constantly fighting with Yi Fengru. No, to be more precise, Yi Fengyu didn't actually try to kill Yi Fengru. Although his attacks were fierce, he only had the thought of knocking Yi Fengru out, not taking his life. On the contrary, Yi Fengru's every attack was fatal. After all, Yi Fengyu's temperament was still immature. He still couldn't kill his own brother. What's more, the injuries on his body had not yet healed. When he crossed hands with Yi Fengru, he was at a disadvantage. As expected. Just as Yi Qing Luo was worried about Yi Fengyu, Yi Fengru suddenly flashed and shifted behind Yi Fengyu. Chapter 2094. Little Yu. Yi Qing Luo suddenly jumped up, her fingertips quickly shot out the glower flame fan like a spiral. Yi Fengyu immediately turned around, only to see Yi Fengru's blade coming down. Clang, just as the blade was within a fist's distance. The glower flame fan was like a burning fire elf, colliding with that long blade. Yi Fengru only felt his arm go numb, the long blade fell to the ground. Yi Fengyu quickly retreated on Shi Ju, the feeling of picking his life back from the edge of death made him gasp for breath. Luckily his sister saved him. Thinking of his sister, Yi Fengyu immediately lowered his head to look at Yi Qing Luo's direction. This look, Yi Fengyu's pupils, suddenly constricted. Yi Qing Luo then jumped up and threw the glower flame fan in her hand towards Yi Fengyu. His back was exposed in front of the group of black-clothed men. How would the black-robed men let go of such a good opportunity? Immediately one by one flocked forward, the profound chi waves in the air, gradually forming a twisted ripple. The moment Yi Qing Luo threw out the glower flame fan, she reacted quickly, trying to avoid the black-robed men who sneak attacked from behind. But no matter how fast she was, because of the action of throwing out the glower flame fan, she was a step too slow. Swoosh, the blade light grazed her back. Her robe was cut, a bright red blood mark appeared on Yi Qing Luo's fair skin. Yi Fengyu's eyes widened, roared out, "Sister!" Yi Qing Luo groaned, knitted her brows, and raised a palm wind. The palm was strong, like a surging wave, roaring angrily towards the group of sneak attackers. The black-robed men screamed, fell to the ground one after another, unable to get up. Yi Qing Luo raised her head, looked coldly at Yi Fengyu. "Shut up, let me see your courage as the Three Springs sect's patriarch, don't let me down." After saying that, she didn't look at Yifengyu again. Carrying her injured body, she once again rushed into the group of black-robed men. Yiqing Luo was wearing a red robe. Yifengyu couldn't see the wound on her back, how much blood was flowing. But he knew, Yiqing Luo's injury was definitely not shallow. It was him, he was the one who injured his sister. If his sister hadn't done it to save him, it was impossible for Big Sister to be ambushed by those people. Yifengyu clenched his fists tightly, the veins on his forehead bulging. In his ears, it was as if Yiqing Luo's words were still ringing, "Don't disappoint me. Don't disappoint me. Don't disappoint me. Don't let me down." That was right. He could not let his sister down. He had already made up his mind that from now on, it would be his turn to protect his sister. But today, for the sake of someone who hurt her, she got hurt, from the moment Yifengyu had hurt his sister. Yifengyu was no longer his second brother. It was his enemy. He had said that he would protect his sister. "I want to be my sister's most solid support. No one is allowed to hurt my sister." Yifengyu's eyes burned with an intense desire to fight. The way he looked at Yifengyu became ruthless and filled with killing intent. Yifengyu was also taken aback by this look. Yifengyu snorted disdainfully, "My good eighth brother, you can't stand seeing that little bastard injured? I say, don't tell me you like that little bastard." Yifengyu didn't answer, the battle intent in his body continued to rise. "That's your sister." Chapter 2095. Luan, Yifengyu didn't even have time to say it. Boom! A violent fluctuation of Xian Qi rushed towards Yifengyu like a hot knife through butter. Yifengyu was still teasing Yifengyu when he saw Yifengyu suddenly attacking him. That powerful Xian Qi was obviously trying to take his life. Yifengyu's face changed and wanted to avoid it. But it was too late. The palm strike, filled with rage, landed heavily on Yifengyu's chest. Yifengyu was like a broken kite, flew out and fell heavily on the ground, spitting out blood. He stared at Yifengyu in disbelief. The boy who had always been a yes man actually dared to fight with him. Actually really wanted to kill. "No one is allowed to speak ill of my sister." Yifengyu's angry voice was covered with ice. Anger, monstrous anger, burned in his heart. He couldn't wait to completely burn everything that hurt Yiqing Luo. Yifengyu gritted his teeth, then suddenly let out a hearty laugh. "I just said a few words about that little bastard, and you really want to take my life? And you still dare to say that you don't have any improper thoughts about that little bastard?" His eyes were scarlet, and he couldn't stop laughing. "Yifengyu, that lowly bastard has a whole bunch of different men by her side. You alone aren't enough to enter her eyes, right?" Ha ha ha, Yifengyu's laughter. It was extremely harsh, piercing the murderous intent in Yifengyu's eyes. He flipped his palm and a long sword, unknowingly appeared in his palm. He rolled up a sword wave and gently waved it. The sword light was like a blooming firework, layer by layer, wave by wave rippled in the air. Yifengyu's pupils contracted, the smile on his face also froze. That sword power followed the air, surged and shot straight, blocking all of Yifengyu's escape routes. This is... Yifengyu was terrified to the extreme, and he kept shrinking back. Yifengyu's eyes were cold, murderous intent filled his eyes. The sword light in his hand crisscrossed, without any intention of mercy. Bang bang bang, boom boom boom, the sword power was full of power, the ground shook, under the sword chi, a thin crack appeared. Ah! Yifengyu let out a terrified scream. He had nowhere to run, nowhere to run. She could only close her eyes and scream in fear. The strong wind brushed against his face like a sharp blade, constantly cutting his face. His body felt like it was being swept up by the sword wave and was about to be devoured by it. But, after that powerful wave of chi swept past, Yifengru didn't feel the pain of being torn to shreds like he had imagined. He was overjoyed. Could it be that someone had come to save him? Yifengru's eyes snapped open, and he looked around with wild joy. The smile on his face froze again. There was no one around him. There was no so-called rescuer. He half knelt on the ground. The ground around him was densely packed with cracks like a spider web. It was the mark left by the sword wave. Yifeng, you didn't kill him. The feeling of thinking that he was going to die, but being rescued from the jaws of death instantly surged into his heart. Yifengru lay limp on the ground, gasping for breath. He was overjoyed. As expected, Yifeng, you couldn't bear to kill him. Yifeng, you, that silly boy, still had affection for the Yi family in his heart. He couldn't bear to, and didn't dare. The feeling of surviving a disaster. And the feeling of being sure that Yifeng, you didn't dare to kill him. Chapter 2096. Yifengru, you are the one who is dirty, don't think that everyone is as dirty as you. The young man's immature voice was filled with a cold murderous intent as he said it word by word. Yifengru was stunned as he raised his head stiffly and looked at the young man who was riding on the back of a black leopard with a long sword in his hand. The young man's aura was majestic, his navy blue brocade robe was fluttering in the strong wind. Yifengru suddenly had an ominous premonition spreading in his heart. Sister is right about one thing, a person's heart is dirty, whatever he sees, is dirty. Yifengru said coldly, I want to verify the truth of this sentence. Yifengru, let me dig open your heart and see if your heart is dirty. Just as he finished his words, Yifengru's figure had already appeared in front of Yifengru. He raised his long sword and pointed it at Yifengru. Do you know why I didn't kill you now? Because I want to torture you. He said it very slowly, word by word, enunciated very clearly. The long sword in his hand, bit by bit, scratched Yifengru's skin. The cold touch faintly felt a stab of pain. There was a warm liquid, seeping out from the stab of pain. Yifengru didn't dare to move as he looked at Yifengru in horror. He couldn't believe that this overbearing, devil-like young man in front of him, could it be that easily soft-hearted, silly and stupid Yifengru? It's him. Stimulated Yifengru's growth. There was no time for Yifengru to think of other ways to escape. Yifengru's torturing long sword had already fallen on his body. Powerless to resist. The pain was unbearable. After Yiqing Luo was injured, she fought more and more bravely. Out of the 100 over black-robed men, there were only 60 over people left. The ground was littered with corpses, blood flowing everywhere. The remaining 60 over people, the more they fought, the more terrified they became. At this moment, their hearts were filled with curses. How could this young lady be so abnormal? One person, just one person, she killed half of them. This young lady was as cunning as a loach. Over 100 people tried to catch her but still couldn't. Most importantly, the fan in the girl's hand was too strange and terrifying. In the blink of an eye, there would always be 1 or 2 people who fell stiffly to the ground. Even in death, they still did not understand. How did they die? They finally understood why their lord had sent so many people to capture a 15-year-old girl. More than 60 people did not dare to act rashly. Yiqing Luo gripped her glower flame fan tightly as she scanned the surroundings vigilantly. That beautiful face that could topple cities was extremely pale. Beads of sweat rolled down his forehead. She tensed her body and emotions, not daring to relax in the slightest. In the eyes of those 60 over black-robed men, Yiqing Luo's expression was calm. Apparently she could still fight for another few hundred rounds. But Yiqing Luo herself knew. She was about to run out of energy. She was just a person with a mortal body. Not to mention that they were facing so many profounders from other planes. It was already incredible that she could hold on until now. She could not reveal the fact that she had exhausted all of her strength. She could not give the other party any chance to take advantage of her. 60 over black-robed men, bit by bit, narrowed the encirclement of Yi-Ching Luo. They exchanged a look. She could not drag on any longer. Chapter 2097. Yi-Ching Luo was indeed abnormal. But after such a long battle, Yi-Ching Luo was more or less exhausted. They didn't believe it. They couldn't even deal with a 15-year-old young lady after so many years. Go! One of the black-robed men gave his order. 60 over black-robed men covered the sky as they charged forward. Yi-Ching Luo's heart tightened when she heard that word. She gripped the glower flame fan tightly as her eyes squinted, reflecting a cold murderous intent. The profound chi in her body revolved wildly. The young lady's red dress was like a dancing butterfly. Between the fluttering wings, the layers of profound chi ripples in the air continued to spread to the surroundings. This wave of profound chi swept. Those 60 over black-robed men's expressions congealed. They were just about to retreat. However, the spreading xian waves suddenly disappeared in an instant. They were stunned. Yi-Ching Luo's profound chi had started to become unstable. Could it be? Yi-Ching Luo couldn't hold on any longer. This knowledge made the black-robed men ecstatic. They immediately raised their swords and charged towards Yi-Ching Luo's direction. How could they possibly miss such a great opportunity? Clang! Those few black-robed men who charged forward had yet to get close to Yi-Ching Luo. They only felt a numbing sensation on their arms. Their weapons left their hands. Following that, they could only see a red shadow appearing in front of them. They heard the sound of a fan opening and closing. The next moment, their bodies turned cold. After that, they lost all feeling. But those black-robed men who charged towards Yi-Ching Luo saw it with their own eyes. Those few black-robed men who were in front. Inexplicably, their limbs split. Blood splattered on their bodies. This scene made those black-robed men's faces revealed a horrified expression. This cruel method was done by this 15-year-old young lady. They didn't even see her make a move. As it turned out, the fluctuation of profound chi just now was caused by the sudden disappearance of chi. Yi-Ching Luo did it on purpose, intentionally luring them to take the bait. Dozens of black-robed men became timid once again. It was a bloody scene. Even if it was them, they might not be able to do it expressionlessly. Yi-Ching Luo panted lightly as she quietly kept the silver threads back into the glower flame fan. She glanced at Yi Fengyu from the corner of her eyes. Seeing Yi Fengyu's current state, as well as Yi Fengru lying in a pool of blood, she relaxed. From the looks of it, Yi Fengyu had completely transformed. As long as Yi Fengyu could pass this trial today, it would be of great help to his future growth. Yi-Ching Luo withdrew her gaze and no longer worried about her brother. She's deliberately mystifying us. Look at her hand. Suddenly, one of the black-clothed men roared. Everyone looked in the direction of the voice. Yi-Ching Luo's hand, which was holding the glower flame fan, was stained with traces of blood. It was a thin trail of blood. The silver threads were clearly exposed to their eyes. It was silver wire. Yi-Ching Luo made use of the silver threads to kill those black-robed men without anyone knowing. This knowledge gave the black-clothed people confidence. They looked at each other. Suddenly, a few black shadows scuttled towards Yi-Ching Luo. Following that, the other black-clothed men also dashed over quickly. They stared vigilantly at that strange fan in Yi-Ching Luo's hands. Stop! Suddenly, a soft but flat and emotionless voice resounded throughout the entire garden. This voice made the black-clothed men stop in their tracks. In the air, there was a ding-dang-dang sound when they fixed their eyes on it. Chapter 2098. The young lady's figure was petite, her head only reached Yi Qing Luo's shoulder. Dressed in a pink long dress, a string of black bell bracelet on her wrist. Lolita's face, Lolita's appearance. But her pair of eyes were extremely sluggish, empty and lifeless. Shadow, they are very dangerous, stand behind me. Yi Qing Luo immediately pressed on Mo Yuying's shoulder, only you came. Where are they? They are still behind. Mo Yuying replied calmly, I sensed their presence so I came over first. Yi Qing Luo's hand which was pressing on Mo Yuying's shoulder stiffened, you. The corners of Mo Yuying's lips suddenly twitched. Although the smile was stiff. But Yi Qing Luo could tell. Mo Yuying was smiling. This was the second time Yi Qing Luo saw a different expression on Mo Yuying's face since the first time she met her. Although the smile was very stiff and awkward. But at least it was a smile. Not waiting for Yi Qing Luo to regain her senses from this smile. Mo Yuying had already turned her head and looked at those black-robed men who were frozen on the spot. Her face had already resumed its expressionless and stiff look. How dare you, Nirvana realm is a place where you can come. Mo Yuying looked at the black-robed men blankly. The black-robed men trembled. The next moment, all of them knelt on the ground. Island Sage. The black-robed men's forehead was pressed against the ground as they trembled. Island Sage. This group of black-robed men called Mo Yuying as Island Sage. What was going on? After Mo Yuying appeared, Yi Qing Luo had some guesses in her heart. But when she saw this group of black-robed men really kneeling on the ground, being extremely respectful, Yi Qing Luo was still stunned. Mo Yuying was actually a big boss. And is super big boss. Island Sage, just by hearing this name, she knew that he was absolutely a big shot. Why were there two of them beside her? They were all heaven-defying existences. Look, one Long Yunjian, that was a human dragon. Look at Xiao Jin, he was the Heaven Realm's Tian family successor. Beside her. Which great god was there? Why did she feel that although she had always been the boss, but her actual status was the lowest? If Yi Qing Luo's words were to be known by everyone, everyone would definitely roll their eyes and say, you're the future empress, your status is miles ahead of us. Mo Yuying tilted her head and looked at them blankly, you still know that I am your island sage. Island sage, this is the island master's order, we also. The men in black wanted to cry but had no tears. If they had known that the person they were going to capture today was a friend of the island sage, they would not have come even if they were killed by the island master. The island sage was 1,000 times more terrifying than the island master. Mo Yuying shook the bell in her hand. The crisp tinkling sounds were extremely pleasing to the ear. But in the ears of the black-clothed men, it sounded like a fatal sound. They covered their ears in horror and began to tremble. All of them kowtowed with all their might, desperately begging for mercy. However, Mo Yuying's expression did not change at all. She just tilted her head and didn't move. If not for those lifeless eyelashes that occasionally fluttered a few times. Yi Qing Luo really felt that the Mo Yuying standing in front of her was an exquisitely crafted wooden puppet. Shadow, leave them alive. Yi Qing Luo realized Mo Yuying's way of doing things. Although she wasn't sure what effect the tinkling of the bell had on those black-clothed men. But Yi Qing Luo was very clear. The bell continued ringing. Chapter 2099. Mo Yuying turned her head sideways and took a look at Yi Qing Luo. After a while, he slowly spat out a word, oh. As soon as he finished speaking, the ringing stopped. The black-clothed men, who were howling in pain, kowtowing and rolling on the ground, collapsed into a pool of blood. The bell stopped ringing. The men in black immediately kowtowed. "Lord Island Sage, please spare us. Lord Island Sage, please spare us." Mo Ewing ignored them. Instead, he moved his body away. Yi Ching Luo walked out from behind her. Slowly, he walked to the front of the men in black. "You are from the Godless Island." Yi Ching Luo's voice was very calm. This wasn't a question but a statement. From the moment they shouted "Island Master," Yi Ching Luo had already guessed their identities. Godless Island, what kind of power was this? Why did they have to team up with people related to her time and again to deal with her? The men in black kneeled on the ground and shivered. No one dared to speak. Yi Ching Luo frowned slightly. When Mo Ewing saw this, her tender little hands hugged Yi Ching Luo's arm as she snorted coldly. This cold humph made Yi Ching Luo unable to restrain her laughter. His face was calm and his eyes were empty. However, she did her best to pout her lips and put on an angry expression as she snorted coldly. She looked extremely adorable. Yi Ching Luo couldn't help but pinched her cheek. Mo Ewing raised her head in confusion. Her round, big, and extremely beautiful eyes blinked. However, there was not the slightest bit of spirit in his eyes. Yi Ching Luo sighed softly. She was clearly such a cute girl. On Mo Ewing's body, just how many more secrets were hidden? Island Sage, when the black-robed men heard Mo Ewing's cold snort, they trembled in fear. As soon as they spoke, Yi Ching Luo's attention returned back to the black-robed men. He caught a glimpse of Yi Ching Luo's expression. The man in black who was kneeling at the front responded quickly, "Yes, yes, we are from Godless Island." This attitude made Yi Ching Luo puzzled. On Godless Island, after all, it was the island master who had a higher status. Or was it Mo Ewing, the island sage, who had a higher status? "Your island lord, what's the reason for you to come over?" Yi Ching Luo cast aside all the other thoughts. The most important thing now was to understand Godless Island's intention. The black-clothed man was startled. Soon after, they looked at each other with troubled expressions. Yi Ching Luo raised her brows. "Since you refuse to say, why not listen to me?" The men in black lowered their heads, not daring to speak. "I've come into contact with the people from the Godless Island a few times. You have cooperated with the underworld forces, and your target should be me. Now, he's using Yi Fengru to brazenly appear in front of the representatives of the Western continent's major powers. Clearly, he has no intention of hiding his identity." Chapter 2100. Per Island Lord's orders, to cooperate with Yi Fengru to sabotage you. Inheriting Three Springs Sect. The black-robed man replied with a trembling voice. Sabotage her Inheriting Three Springs Sect. What did her Inheriting Three Springs Sect have to do with Godless Island? Why did that old man want to sabotage Ching Lu as Three Springs Sect's patriarch? Mo Ewing popped her little head out from behind Yi Ching Luo and asked the question on her behalf. We don't know. The black-robed men shrunk their necks. Mo Ewing sneered unhappily again. "You don't know? We really don't know. Island Sage, you know Island Lord's character very well, how would he possibly tell us the reason? Moreover, Island Lord's thoughts, we don't dare to guess." The black-robed men were so scared that they almost peed their pants. In their hearts, they all begged the Island Sage, who had an unpredictable temperament, not to vent his anger on them. Mo Ewing raised her wrist, her fingertips caressing the two furry little balls hanging on her shoulders. Her stiff and emotionless voice sounded faintly, "Since that's the case, there's no point in keeping you two. Island Sage, spare us. Island sage, spare us. Ding ding dang dang. The black-robed men's pleading voices were suppressed by the crisp ringing of the bell. Just a moment later, those black-robed men who were begging for mercy hugged their heads and banged their heads on the ground continuously. Yi-Ching Luo pursed her pink lips, looking at the expressionless young lady who was shaking the bell in her hand. Her pink lips moved, but in the end, she didn't say anything. She knew. Mo Ewing was worried about something. Since Mo Ewing didn't want her to know about those matters on Godless Island, she didn't ask. In just half an incense's time, these black-robed men all banged themselves to death on the ground. A thick blood stench filled the air. In the garden, other than the sounds created by Yi Fengyu and Yi Fengru, there were no other sounds. Yi-Ching Luo raised her head and looked towards Yi Fengyu's direction. This look made Yi-Ching Luo slightly surprised. Because Yi Fengru was lying on the ground, so abused that he couldn't be recognized. Yi Fengru's robe had already turned into strips under Yi Fengyu's sword power. Not a single part of his body was intact. It was covered with scattered sword wounds. It was a ghastly sight. Blood covered Yi Fengru's entire body. Yi Fengru looked as if he had been soaked in blood. It was clear that Yi Fengyu was ruthless. He looked at the expressionless youth riding on the Xian's back, who only had eyes for Yi Fengru. Although, this was a growth for Yi Fengyu. However, Yi-Ching Luo had never thought of cultivating him into a devil. Yi Fengyu's current state. It was no different from turning into a demon. Yi-Ching Luo took out 2 bottles from the profound phoenix ring and passed it to Mo Ewing. He pointed at the representatives of the major forces around him, who were either unconscious or had their eyes wide open. Mo Yang understood and took the bottle of medicine to cure those people. Yi-Ching Luo took a step forward and walked towards Yi Fengyu's direction. Xiao Yu. Her voice was a little cold, and her steps were extremely slow. Yi-Ching Luo could see it clearly. The young man's slender body stiffened when he heard her call. If you can still hear my voice, then turn around and look at me. Yi-Ching Luo said calmly. The young man's stiff body seemed to be hesitating. Chapter 2101. The youth's young and tender face was no longer as stern and sinister as before. A pair of black eyes blinked in panic and helplessness. He looked like a child who had yet to grow up. He had done something wrong and was standing there uneasily, waiting for his punishment. Through him, Yi-Ching Luo looked at the ground, at Yi Fengru who had long lost his human form. Yi Fengyu noticed her gaze. Subconsciously, he moved in front of Yi Fengru, trying to block Yi-Ching Luo's line of sight. Yi-Ching Luo looked at him indifferently. You don't want sister to see him. Yi Fengyu was silent for a long time, then nodded. Why? Yi-Ching Luo remained calm. Yi Fengyu lowered his eyes. His fingers, which were gripping the long sword, were so tightly clenched that his fingertips had turned white. She waited for a long time, but Yi Fengyu did not reply. Yi-Ching Luo muttered to herself, You don't want me to see you make Yi Fengru into this state. Are you afraid that I will be afraid of you? Yi Fengyu's pupils constricted, and he didn't reply. Instead, he lowered his head even more. Yi-Ching Luo slowly walked towards him. Yi Fengyu wanted to retreat. However, after Shi Ju saw its master, its feet stopped moving. If not for the fact that Yi Fengyu was still on its back, it was afraid that it would transform into a little black cat and pounce into its master's arms. Yi-Ching Luo stood in front of Shi Ju. She looked up at Yi Fengyu. Yi Fengyu lowered his head and coincidentally met Yi-Ching Luo's line of sight. There was an indescribable sense of panic in his heart. The sword in his hand fell to the ground in shock. Clang! The sound of the long sword falling to the ground was extremely crisp. The blood on the ground stained the sword. Yi Fengyu was at a loss of what to do. He cautiously glanced at Yi Qingluo's expression and wanted to get down from the seal's back to pick up the long sword. However, Shi Ju didn't give him a chance to get down. When those who were awake saw this, they couldn't help but admire Yi Qingluo even more. The scene of Yi Fengyu brutally beating up Yi Fengru was clearly witnessed by all of them. His aura was strong and majestic. It had the aura of a sect. But, when facing Yi Qingluo, he was like an obedient little brother. The flames on his body were completely restrained. It was as if he had done something wrong and was caught by his elders. Anyone with a discerning eye could tell that the atmosphere between the two of them was a very normal sibling relationship. On the other side, Yi Qingluo had already walked over and bent over to pick up the long sword which was stained with blood. She took out a handkerchief and wiped the blood off the sword bit by bit. Without raising his head, he said, "Little you, my hands are stained with a lot of blood. Many lives have been lost. I have also used many cruel methods to torture my enemies." She paused, and the hand that was wiping the sword also stopped. "Are you afraid of me like this?" "I'm not afraid," Yi Fengyu replied without hesitation. As soon as the words came out, Yi Fengyu was stunned. He stared at Yi Qingluo in a daze with his eyes wide open. Suddenly, he understood the reason why Yi Qingluo asked this question. His nervous and uneasy heart calmed down at this moment. Hearing Yi Fengyu's unhesitating reply, Yi Qingluo's lips curled into a faint smile. "The amount of blood and lives I'm stained with is not something you can imagine. But you're not afraid of me like this, then. You've merely taught a lesson to the scum who insulted me. Why would I be afraid of you and blame you?" Hearing his sister's words, Yi Fengyu's eyes lit up. Chapter 2102. Yi Qingluo took out the sword that she had wiped clean and handed it over to him. The smile on her lips was extremely gentle. Yi Fengyu took the sword with trembling hands. "Sister." He pursed his thin lips and held the sword tightly. "I will definitely become the patriarch of Three Springs sect, and become your most solid backing." Whether Yi Qingluo was his biological sister or not. In his heart, Yi Qingluo was his sister. All the hard work he had done. All in order to better protect his sister. Just like how his sister protected him every time. Yi Qingluo saw the determination in his eyes. She smiled and nodded gently. "I believe in little you. In future, sister will have to rely on little you." After the crisis was resolved, the atmosphere in the garden became more relaxed because of this. Those representatives who woke up after taking the antidote felt like they had a new lease of life. They were extremely puzzled. Why were all the forces from other planes running to the West continent recently? What was going on? And it seemed like most of them were targeting Yi Qingluo. Everyone suddenly recalled the news that old Grand Madam and Yi Fengru had revealed not long ago. Yi Qingluo was not from the Yi family. Then, Yi Qingluo's mysterious father, could he be some big shot? Otherwise, how could Yi Qingluo have such a strong innate talent? And attracted the attention of so many forces from other planes? Just as everyone was imagining a melodramatic drama that couldn't get any more melodramatic. Suddenly, someone noticed something and shouted angrily, "Eighth young Master Yi, be careful." Everyone was shocked by this shout. Yi Qingluo heard this and quickly reached out to grab Yi Fengyu's arm. She exerted force and pulled Yi Fengyu from Shi Ju's back to her back. Shi Ju quickly bent its limbs and laid flat on the ground. At the same time, a piercingly cold profound ray pierced over. Yi Qingluo's reaction was too fast. That profound ray pierced through thin air. But the profound ray did not stop because of this. Instead, it pierced towards Yi Qingluo's direction with irresistible force. Yiqing Luo snorted coldly as her fingers clenched tightly and threw a punch forward. Bam! A loud sound followed Yiqing Luo's punch. A body covered in blood rolled out. It was Yi Fengru. When Yi Fengyu saw Yi Fengru lying in a pool of blood, his eyes flashed with disbelief. He had personally turned Yi Fengru into something unrecognizable. Naturally, he knew that it was impossible for Yi Fengru to still be able to fight. But Yi Fengru actually still had the strength to take advantage of the opportunity to assassinate them. Everyone looked at Yi Fengru, who had fallen to the ground and was unable to get up. Seeing that Yiqing Luo and her brother were safe and sound, they heaved a sigh of relief. Everyone's gazes once again fell on Yi Fengru. They were also astonished. Yi Fengru was injured to this extent, yet he still had the strength to fight. Yiqing Luo, you slut, I'm going to kill you. Kill you. Yi Fengru fell to the ground, but he didn't settle down. He twisted his head ferociously and roared through gritted teeth. In his eyes, wisps of black gas flashed faintly. The denser it was, the more he struggled. After scolding Yiqing Luo with that furious bellow, he coughed out a mouthful of blood. His mouth opened and closed again, but there was no sound. But, from the shape of Yi Fengru's mouth, Yi Fengru shouted the two words, Qian. Zi Qian again. Yiqing Luo's slender brows knitted tightly as something flashed past her mind. She seemed to be about to grab that thing. Chapter 2103. That figure's speed was simply too fast. And it was filled with a killing intent. Yiqing Luo had yet to stop it. Carrying a strong practitioner's powerful palm wind, it mercilessly struck towards Yi Fengru, who was lying on the ground, unable to move. No, a shrill scream was heard. On the stage, a slender figure dashed towards Yi Fengru's direction. Bam! The palm wind landed heavily on the figure that had suddenly appeared. That person's body flew out weakly and fell beside Yi Fengru, spitting out a mouthful of blood. Bei Ming family. Yiqing Luo's throat moved. Just as that person dashed out to block in front of Yi Fengru, Yiqing Luo recognized that it was the Bei Ming family. Yi Fengru's birth mother, the Bei Ming family. She was a beautiful and intelligent woman. Yi Fengyu was also shocked by the sudden turn of events. The young man's slender body leaned slightly behind Yiqing Luo. A pair of anxious and uneasy eyes looked towards Yi Fengru's direction in a daze. Everyone was shocked that the Bei Ming family who suddenly rushed out to save Yi Fengru. Yiqing Luo had already set her sights on that person who attacked Yi Fengru. If she didn't hear wrongly, she seemed to have heard that person call out, "Island Sage," just now. Which meant the person who attacked Yi Fengru was from Godless Island. Not far from Yi Fengru stood a hunched, extremely skinny old man. The old man's eyes stared at Yi Fengru, his hands clenched into fists. His face was filled with a vexed expression. Vexed? Yiqing Luo squinted her eyes in interest. This old man was vexed, not being able to kill Yi Fengru. Wu Sha. Mo Ying's stiff voice rang from behind Yiqing Luo. She expressionlessly walked to Yiqing Luo's side, her empty eyes locked onto that old man. Wu Sha. Yiqing Luo had seen him before. She had seen this Wu Sha beside Godless Island's young master island lord Yi Qian. That time when they entered Godless Island's array. It was this Wu Sha's doing. Wu Sha greets Lord Island Sage. Wu Sha bowed respectfully and was extremely respectful. Mo Ying replied, that old man really put in a lot of effort. In order to kidnap Qing Luo, he even sent you out. Wu Sha bowed even lower, Island Sage, please don't misunderstand. This subordinate is only here to monitor the situation of the islanders and will not interfere with this order. You think that after leaving Godless Island for so many years, this holy lord has become so stupid that you can fool me? Mo Ewing sneered. These words came out of her mouth in a flat tone, although her tone was rigid. However, that kind of aura and the coldness in his words gave off a bone-chilling feeling. Wu Sha knelt on the ground. This subordinate does not dare. Mo Ying's empty eyes swept past Wu Sha. She did not speak and did not ask Wu Sha to get up. She allowed Wu Sha to kneel on the ground. Wu Sha was furious, but he did not dare to offend the island sage. Yiqing Luo looked at Wu Sha, who was kneeling on the ground, and didn't say anything. Wu Sha's appearance made Yiqing Luo have some calculations in her heart. Wu Sha's motive was obviously to kill Yi Fengru. That meant to say that Yi Fengru had some secret on him which the Godless Island wanted to destroy. Otherwise, Wu Sha would not specially appear and take action against Yi Fengru under everyone's watchful eyes. Even if Wu Sha's reason was to use Island Sage, which was Mo Ying's name. But Yiqing Luo understood. Wu Sha merely wanted to take Yi Fengru's life. She was curious. Chapter 2104. Mother, Mother. Yi Fengru's face was sprayed with blood by Bai Mingshi. The warm blood soaked his face. It also caused Yi Fengru's heart to suddenly feel a sharp pain. Bai Mingshi spat out a mouthful of blood. Her eyes gradually lost focus. She struggled to adjust the focus, wanting to see her son clearly. But the feeling of powerlessness made her gradually want to close her eyes. Although Wu Sha's palm only used 50% of his strength. But Bai Mingshi was only a weak woman who didn't often cultivate. She couldn't withstand Wu Sha's palm. But Bai Mingshi didn't regret it. Her son was fine, as long as her son was fine. Mother, why did you block this palm for me? Why did you block it? Yi Fengru struggled to crawl to Bai Mingshi's side. He tightly grasped Bai Mingshi's hand, crying bitterly, Mother, Mother, don't close your eyes, I can save you. I'm a medicine master, I can save you. He frantically touched the ring in his hand. Several bottles of medicine were taken out. His hands were trembling as he desperately searched for healing pills. But every single bottle was filled with dark poison. Yi Fengru's heart was even more flustered, constantly rummaging for medicine bottles. His hands and body also began to tremble more and more. Bai Mingshi called Yi Fengru in a low voice. Yi Fengru's body stiffened, ignoring the blood all over his body, holding Bai Mingshi tightly. Mother, I'm here. Bai Mingshi leaned against his chest. Between the breath, there was a thick smell of blood. She couldn't tell whether it was Yi Fengru's or her own. She heard Yi Fengru call her mother over and over again, and felt the warmth of his palms. Bai Mingshi's heart was already filled with satisfaction. She wanted to laugh, but didn't have the strength to move her lips. In the end, she could only spit out a few weak breaths. Promise Mother, don't take revenge, live well. For Mother, you also have to live well. Bai Mingshi's breath was extremely weak, as if it would break at any moment. On Yi Fengru's face, there was no telling whether it was tears or blood. He hugged Lady Bai Ming tightly and said with a sobbing tone, I will live on. Mother, you have to live on too. Mother, Mother, he suddenly raised his head and looked at Yiqing Luo. That blood-soaked face looked like it had been soaked in a pool of blood. No matter how one looked at it, it was horrifying. Yiqing Luo. I know you can save my mother, I beg you. I beg you to save her. Yi Fengru seemed to have caught hold of a life-saving straw as he struggled to get up and wanted to kneel down towards Yiqing Luo. But his body was already riddled with wounds, and he was holding Lady Bai Ming, so he couldn't kneel at all. Yiqing Luo looked at him. Then, he looked at the Bai Ming clan in his arms. The expression on his face was calm. However, his heart was unable to calm down. No matter how wicked Yi Fengru was, he treated the Bai Ming clan with sincerity. Bai Ming clan. This lady's intelligence and accurate choice of side made Yi Qing Luo not feel any antipathy towards her. However, she was no saint. The relationship between the mother and son was indeed touching. But Yi Qing Luo would never forget that Yi Fengru had tried to kill her several times. I know I'm wrong, but my mother treats you sincerely. Yi Fengru wailed, I beg you to save my mother, I can use my life to exchange. Lady Bai Ming suddenly increased her strength as she clasped Yi Fengru's wrist. Chapter 2105. Yi Qing Luo fixed her gaze on the Bai Ming clan. After a while, she moved her feet and walked towards her. Yi Fengru trembled as he raised his head to look at Yi Qing Luo. The scarlet in his eyes and the lingering black aura gradually faded. Even though his face was covered in dirt and blood, Yi Qing Luo could clearly see the pleading and helplessness on his face. Yi Qing Luo, I beg you to save her. As long as you save her, I will do anything to repay you. Yi Fengru pleaded with a sobbing tone, if you want my life, you can take it. As long as you are willing to save my mother, save my mother. Yi Qing Luo half squatted down, you are my prey, it's easy for me to take your life. Yi Fengru was stunned as tears flowed out of his eyes. Yi Qing Luo, I know I have lost my mind, I shouldn't have done so many things to hurt you, but my mother doesn't know anything, she is wholeheartedly for you, for Three Springs sect, Yi Fengru. Yi Qing Luo's cold voice interrupted Yi Fengru's crying. Her eyes were calm as she stared at Yi Fengru calmly. Didn't you say that Zi Qianqian is your everything and losing Zi Qianqian is equivalent to losing everything? She paused as her lips curled into a chilly arc. The arc was very shallow, but it also revealed some profound meaning. Yi Fengru's body stiffened as the expression on his face froze. Yi Fengru, have you ever thought about your mother and everything you did previously? Yi Qing Luo smiled faintly as her gaze was like a torch. When you killed your father and forced the abdication, have you ever thought about your mother, that she is the concubine of Three Springs sect? Have you ever thought about what the outside world would say about her? When you joined forces with Yi Qing Qian and the dark forces, have you ever thought about your mother? Have you ever thought about what would happen to you and your mother if the rebellion failed? If you succeed, you will bear the name of a traitor and your mother will be condemned by the world. How will she live peacefully? If you fail, you will die, and not only will your mother die with you, she will also bear the blame. You disregarded everything and even your life to seek revenge on me for Zi Qianqian. Have you ever thought about your mother's position in Three Springs sect after losing you? You. Yi Qing Luo had yet to finish her words. Yi Fengru choked with sobs as he shook his head frantically. Don't say any more, don't say any more. Tears filled his face, mixed with the fresh blood. His entire face looked extremely comical. He hugged Lady Bai Ming tightly and cried until his voice was hoarse. I was wrong. I know I was wrong. I was possessed. I shouldn't have done this, in this world. His only relative was his mother. It was the Bai Ming clan that had given him the peace he had grown up in the Three Springs sect, which was filled with internal strife and intrigue. It was the Bai Ming clan. Chapter 2106. Yi Qing Luo remained calm. As for Yi Fengru, who was crying like a man in tears, she was not moved in the slightest. She lowered her eyes and looked at Bai Ming, who was gripping Yi Fengru's sleeves tightly, struggling to keep her eyes open, her lips trembling. She pursed her lips and held Bai Ming's other hand. Bai Ming's body temperature was already a bit cold. Yi Qing Luo revolved her profound energy and injected some profound qi into Bai Mingshi's body to protect his shattered heart meridians. Bai Mingshi held Yi Qing Luo's hand tightly, as her mouth moved agitatedly, wanting to say something. Don't talk anymore. If you drag on any longer, even Master Ghost Doctor won't be able to save you. Yi Qing Luo pushed her hand away so as not to disturb her transmission of profound qi. But she didn't use any strength. Bai Ming's grip on her hand tightened. Perhaps it was Yi Qing Luo's profound qi which helped the Bai Ming family to recover some of their energy. She panted heavily as she raised her head and looked at Yi Qing Luo with pleading eyes as she spoke in an extremely soft voice. "Seventh Miss, listen to me. I. Her face grew paler and paler. Wu Sha's palm had indeed caused her internal organs to shatter. He did not close his eyes. It was her feelings for her son that had kept her going until now. Bai Ming's body was throbbing with pain. She endured the pain and continued with difficulty. "I know my body the best. I want to beg, seventh young lady." Yi Qing Luo's action of transferring profound qi paused. Madame Bai Ming's breathing seemed to have stopped, as the hand which was holding Yi Qing Luo's hand gradually twisted into a crooked shape. Yi Qing Luo was shocked and hurriedly revolved her profound qi to maintain the vitality of the Bai Ming clan. "Seventh young lady, for the sake of my dedication to the Three Springs sect, spare Ru-er's life. I'm willing to exchange something with you." Madame Bai Ming took a deep breath and tried her best to look at Yi Qing Luo. "Seventh Miss, what happened that year?" I actually know a little. If Seventh Miss wants to know about your biological father. In the secret compartment in my room, there is something that Seventh Miss wants. She stuttered. Yi Qing Luo had to listen carefully to understand what she was saying. When the word biological father was mentioned, the expression on his face changed. Yi Qing Luo's heart suddenly trembled. The Bai Ming clan knew what had happened back then. "I'll use this to exchange for Ru-er's life." The depths of Lady Bai Ming's eyes had already gradually turned cloudy. "Ru-er's sins will be repaid with my lowly life." Mother! Yi Fengru realized something. He hugged Lady Bai Ming and screamed, "Mother, don't leave me behind. If you leave, what's the point of living?" "Mother, Ru-er." Dark North strove to raise his hand, wanting to touch Yi Fengru's face. Her eyes gradually became misty and unfocused. His lips opened and closed slightly, and he breathed out soundlessly, "Promise me to live for the Seventh Miss." For her, the last breath was getting lighter and lighter. Then, Bai Ming's hand landed heavily on the ground. In the end, he closed his eyes. "Mother." Yi Fengru wept like a child next to Bai Mingshi's corpse. Yi Qing Luo looked at her palm, at that powerless palm that slid down. His expressionless face changed a little. The Bai Ming clan was dead. Before she died, she used her own life to scheme against her. But she didn't have any temper at all. Bai Mingshi really doted on this son. In the end, she used her own life to exchange for Yi Fengru's life. Chapter 2107. "Mother," Yi Fengru cried hoarsely. Her cries also caused everyone present to be moved. Even earlier, this young man had a fierce look, shouting to kill them, and even poison them. But seeing this scene, the crowd was still unable to condemn him at this moment. Yi Qing Luo's vision was fixed on Yi Fengru. She noticed it. At the moment when Bai Ming clan breathed her last, something seemed to be pulled out from Yi Fengru's body. Recalling earlier Wu Sha's action of trying to kill Yi Fengru, Yi Qing Luo's eyes were filled with deep meaning, as she squinted her eyes. Following that, she slowly stood up, looking down at Yi Fengru who was kneeling on the ground, crying out in pain. Her calm voice had no ripples. "Yi Fengru, Bai Ming clan used her life to exchange for your life, then. Next, whether you want to leave or stay, it's all up to you." The man who was carrying Baiming clan's corpse stiffened slightly. After a long time, Yifengru raised his blood-covered face. That pair of eyes filled with grief, pain, stared at Yiqing Luo without blinking. He wanted to rage. He wanted to blame Yiqing Luo. Baiming clan's death was caused by Yiqing Luo. But the words were at the tip of his tongue. But he couldn't spit out a single word. In his heart, he was very clear. It was him who caused the death of his mother. His mother died because of him. He wanted an outlet to vent the suppressed anger in his heart. But Yifengru was even clearer. This outlet absolutely could not be Yiqing Luo. I don't need you to give me an answer so quickly. How could Yiqing Luo not see the hatred in Yifengru's eyes? Now, she had no intention to kill Yifengru. Of course, if Yifengru still insisted on courting death, then she would not care about Baiming clan. But she would directly kill Yifengru to get rid of any future troubles. After all, in summary, Yifengru was indeed a trouble these few days. Before this, she had to go take a look first. Baiming clan's secret in exchange for Yifengru's life, was it worth it? She had to tolerate Yifengru. Bring the Baiming clan back first. As for the burial, that's up to you. Yiqing Luo indifferently glanced at Yifengru. A medicine bottle rolled to the side of Yifengru's feet. After the ceremony ends, then give me your answer. Yifengru's body was taut, and he lowered his head. His 5 fingers gripped tightly onto Baiming's robes. He tried his best to suppress the anger in his chest. Slowly, he picked up the bottle and held it in his palm. He tightened his arms, stiffly opened the bottle, and swallowed a pill without hesitation. Then, ignoring the wounds on his body, he hugged Baiming Shi and wobbled towards the Three Springs sect's backyard. No one stopped him. No one took a step forward. Yifengru's figure disappeared into the flattened garden. Everyone came back to their senses. Chapter 2108. Was it really okay to lie so blatantly? However, Yiqing Luo didn't care about what those people were thinking. She pulled Yifengru in front of her and said, "Let's continue with the succession ceremony. Hurry up." As she spoke, she glanced sideways and looked at Mo Yuing beside her. "Shadow, I'll leave Wuxia to you. Don't let him leave." Mo Yuing tilted her head and immediately nodded, "I understand." He knew that Godless Island respected Mo Yuying's identity very much. Yiqing Luo wasn't afraid that Wuxia would escape from Mo Yuying's hands. Thus, she focused all her attention on Yifengru's succession ceremony. Just now, a series of unexpected events had occurred. It didn't just shock the various forces present. It also caused the old ancestor to be astonished. Hearing Yiqing Luo's words, the walking stick in old madam's hand started to tremble uncontrollably. Without the Baiming clan by his side to take care of him. After a series of huge changes, the elder ancestor couldn't even stand up at this time. No. No. Old 8, you can't be the leader of the Three Springs sect. The old ancestor's voice trembled as he tried his best to stop him. The old ancestor had seen Yifengru's performance just now. She admired Yifengru's methods against Yifengru. He was also very proud that Yifengru had such a powerful aura at such a young age. But, thinking of what Yiqing Luo had said earlier, it had easily changed Yifengru's emotions. Moreover, Yifengru obviously followed Yiqing Luo's lead. If Yifengru inherited the Three Springs sect, in the end, hadn't he still fallen into Yiqing Luo's hands? She wanted to make use of the relationship between Yiqing Luo and Yifengru, and use Yiqing Luo's current influence to stabilize Three Springs sect. But it didn't mean that she was willing to let Yiqing Luo make use of him to control the Three Springs sect. Before Yifengru had any feelings for Yiqing Luo, Yifengru absolutely could not inherit the Three Springs sect. The old ancestor's sudden resistance caused everyone present to be stunned. Before this, didn't the old ancestor always approve of Yi Fengyu becoming the sect leader of the Three Springs sect? Why did he suddenly change his mind? That's right. He could not become the leader of the Three Springs sect. The Three Springs sect isn't something that can be inherited just because you say so. The sect elder's voice rang out, and the sect elder appeared out of nowhere. The sect elder stood beside the old ancestor. From the first time he saw Yi Qing Luo, he felt that this young lady's threat to him was simply too huge. Now, it seemed that it was indeed so. No matter what, he had to unite with the old forefather and chase Yi Qing Luo, this pervert, out of Three Springs sect. Furthermore, those who were related to Yi Qing Luo, those who had deep feelings for her, should all be chased out of Three Springs sect. TSK, you're indeed a cowardly and useless elder. Now that the matter has been settled, you're already running out to create trouble. Yi Qing Luo ridiculed without any restraint. The sect elder's face darkened. What did you say? This elder is just. He stammered as he tried to retort. After a long while, he finally said, that kid didn't poison me, I was poisoned. Yi Qing Luo scoffed lightly. The disdain in her eyes was obvious. The corner of her mouth curved up, and her eyes narrowed. She glanced sideways at the sect elder. If I'm not mistaken, it seems that in the instant that Yi Fengyu poisoned him, the sect elder fled faster than a rabbit. She paused and turned her head to look at Yi Fengyu, smiling as she asked, Xiao Yu, am I right? Chapter 2109. You two siblings want to join forces and humiliate me so that you can ascend to the position of the Three Springs sect's lord, right? Let me tell you, as long as I am alive, I will take on the responsibility of Three Springs sect's sect elder. The sect elder's face was livid with anger, but he could only clamor and refuse to relent. After saying that, he pushed the elder ancestor beside him. You are the only elder in this generation of Three Springs sect. Tell me, am I right? The old ancestor's eyes had always been fixed on Yi Fengyu. Hearing the sect elder's words, her old eyes seemed to be covered with a layer of mist. His entire person seemed to have aged several decades. How could the elder ancestor not know that Yi Fengyu was the only one in the Three Springs sect who could shoulder this responsibility? Yi Fengyu was also the most suitable candidate. But, unfortunately, she was worried about that meticulous and unpredictable Yi Qing Luo. She did not want to see Three Springs sect fall into the hands of an outsider. The old ancestor stared blankly at Yi Fengyu for a long time. She slowly closed her eyes and sighed softly. Eighth brother's personality is not suitable to inherit the position of sect master. Hearing this, the sect leader felt a sense of satisfaction that he had finally received the support of the Yi clan. That's right. Yi Fengyu does not have the qualifications to inherit Three Springs sect. A sinister glint flashed in the sect elder's eyes. Now that the Three Springs sect is in a precarious situation, we need someone who can stabilize the Three Springs sect and ensure its future development to shoulder this heavy responsibility. He paused and said meaningfully, Old ancestor, in my opinion, what do you think? How could a smart person not understand the meaning behind the sect elder's words? Three Springs sect's young masters and young mistresses were either dead or injured. Only the two young masters, Yi Fengyu and Yi Fengyu, were still alive. Yi Fengyu would never have the chance to become the Three Springs sect leader. Even Yi Fengyu didn't have the qualifications. The person who could protect and stabilize the Three Springs sect, apart from the sect elders, there were no other candidates. The old ancestor did not expect that the sect elder would actually have such ambition. No sect elder had ever interfered with Three Springs sect's internal affairs. He was the first elder who wanted to take charge of the Three Springs sect. The old ancestor did not know how to respond. Although this sect elder was from the Three Springs sect. However, in the heart of the old ancestor, he was still an outsider. Let the sect elders manage the Three Springs sect. It was no different from letting Yi Qing Luo borrow Yi Feng Yu's hand to manage Three Springs sect. What I mean is, I will temporarily take over the position of the sect leader and train the young sect leader with you, old ancestor. Chapter 21:10. The entire garden fell into silence. In that instant, the atmosphere in the area froze. No one dared to make a sound as they stared nervously at the situation in front of them. Everyone could tell that Yi Qing Luo was angry. If it were them, they would be angry too. The sect elder had obviously made up his mind long ago. He wanted to take this opportunity to seize control of Three Springs sect. An outer sect elder. He wanted to seize control of internal affairs. This kind of thing, no matter which family, was absolutely not allowed to happen. However, old Grand Madam was moved. They really couldn't understand what old Grand Madam was thinking. She would rather believe in an outer sect elder, and not willing to believe in her own grandson. There was such an elder in Three Springs sect. If Three Springs sect announced its demise now, they absolutely believed in it. Even if it didn't fall now. Without Yi Qing Luo's support, it was only a matter of time before it fell. You are an outsider, you have no right to intervene in Three Springs sect's affairs. The sect elder gritted his teeth and retorted. He put on a righteous look and snorted coldly. I am just doing official business. Although you are the young patriarch chosen by the former patriarch, but you do not have the blood of the Yi family flowing in you. You who are not from the Yi family, what right do you have to inherit the position of Three Springs sect's patriarch? The sect elder didn't panic and argued with reason. And Yi Fengyu, the Yi family's eighth young master, although he has the blood of the Yi family, but he is still young and his temperament is not suitable to take on such a big responsibility. My duty is to protect Three Springs sect and every generation's patriarch of Three Springs sect. It is reasonable for me to stay in Three Springs sect and nurture the eighth young master while managing Three Springs sect on behalf of him. Why did you say that I am a traitor who covets Three Springs sect? I am the sect elder of the Three Springs sect. My status is noble. Even the Yi clan's old sect leader of the third generation would have to address me respectfully as Lord Elder. Why should I covet Three Springs sect's authority? The sect elder's words sounded extremely reasonable. Yi Qing Luo snorted coldly, so what if your status is noble, you still don't have any real power? Her words hit the nail on the head. It directly pierced into the sect elder's vital point. The sect elder's face suddenly turned pale, and his 5 fingers clenched tightly into a fist. Especially in recent generations, I'm afraid the sect leader of the Three Springs sect has almost forgotten about the sect elders. How long had it been since he had enjoyed the honorable treatment from the previous sect master? You've wasted so much time. How could you possibly not be interested in the Three Springs sect's power? Yi Qing Luo's pink lips curled upwards, revealing a few traces of ridicule. The sect elder was rendered speechless. His face was dark and gloomy, and his facial features looked somewhat sinister. Sect elder, you really... Old Grand Madam realized the seriousness of the matter when she heard Yi Qing Luo's words. Her heart sank. He had lived for most of his life, yet he was blinded at this critical moment. He really wanted an outer sect elder to take charge of the Three Springs sect. She was really getting old, his heart was getting more and more confused. Chapter 21:11. Looking at the sect elder who was still trying his best to quibble. Yi Qing Luo's face was still calm, her lips curled into a faint smile. That calm look. It formed a sharp contrast with the exasperated sect elder. Yi Qing Luo tilted her head and smiled faintly. Sect elder, don't you think that the excuse of jealousy is too far-fetched? All the guests here can see clearly that I, Yi-Ching Luo, have never thought of inheriting Three Springs sect. From the beginning to the end, today's succession ceremony was single-handedly created by me for little you. You were obviously exposed on the spot that you are not a descendant of the Yi family, that's why 8th young master came to replace you. The sect elder roared. Yi-Ching Luo snorted coldly, if I want to be the patriarch of Three Springs sect, why should I not wear the attire specially made for me? Why would little you wear the attire of Three Springs sect and appear here? After a pause, she asked, or does the sect elder think that I have the ability to predict the future? You. The sect elder was speechless as he stared at Yi-Ching Luo with a steely expression. Yi-Ching Luo placed one hand on his shoulder. Her slender body only reached Yi Fengyu's shoulders. However, her aura was extremely powerful. She squinted her eyes, that sinister smile on her lips was extremely treacherous. What? Could it be that the sect elder is really going to insist that I can predict the future? The minute Yi-Ching Luo said that, everyone present couldn't help but burst out laughing. Yes, Yi-Ching Luo's words were reasonable. She didn't wear the attire specially made by the old Grand Master. Obviously, she had no intention to inherit the position of patriarch. From the beginning to the end, she had been planning for her brother. In comparison, it was obvious that the sect elder wanted to control the Three Springs sect. It was obvious that he was an ambitious elder of the sect. You two siblings deliberately colluded. Who doesn't know that 8th young master only listens to you? What's the difference between him and you being the patriarch? The sect elder stubbornly refused to let Yi-Ching Luo go. He's only 15. He's not old enough to be crowned, and he's not qualified to inherit the position of the sect leader. The sect elders racked their brains and finally grasped the most important point in the rules of inheriting the position of the sect master. A complacent smile appeared on his face. If you were a descendant of the Yi clan, it would be logical for you to inherit the position of the clan leader when the clan leader died in an accident. But when the previous sect leader was alive, he had no intention of nurturing the 8th young master. If he inherits the position at this age, I'm afraid the future of the Three Springs sect. He stopped talking. However, everyone understood what he meant by the words he didn't finish. The old ancestor's expression also became solemn. The sect elder stroked his white flowery beard and looked at Yi-Ching Luo complacently. According to the rules of succession, before Yi Fengyu reaches the age of 20, he has no right to inherit the position of sect master. He thought that after extinguishing all of Yi-Ching Luo's hopes, Yi-Ching Luo would definitely be flustered. But, looking at Yi-Ching Luo for some time, the corners of Yi-Ching Luo's lips curled into a strange sneer. The sect elder's heart trembled. Could it be that Yi-Ching Luo still had some tricks up her sleeves? Yi-Ching Luo placed her hands on Yi Fengyu's shoulders and pushed him towards the direction of the crowd. Chapter 21:12. Yi-Ching Luo's gaze lightly swept over the sect elder. The hand on Yi Fengyu's shoulder slowly lifted up and gently tapped on his forehead. Yi Fengyu understood Yi-Ching Luo's meaning. He immediately closed his eyes and let his heart gradually settle down, until he felt the scalding sensation on his forehead. Yi Fengyu then opened his eyes. The moment he opened his eyes, he felt a chill down his spine. His entire aura was released in an instant. The young man was dressed in a solemn navy blue brocade robe. It should have looked extremely comical with that slightly immature face. But the young man's solemn expression. He forcibly raised his own aura to the peak. And also suppressed his own immaturity. The most shocking thing was, on the young man's forehead, there were a few extremely light but distinct patterns. The red flowing light outlined the faintly discernible patterns. At the same time, the dark clouds in the sky dispersed. The projected sunlight shone on the young man's handsome and extraordinary face. That powerful aura was so majestic that the entire garden fell into a dead silence. No matter how powerful the representative was, regardless of seniority or age. At this moment, they were all suppressed by Yi Fengyu's powerful aura and dared not to breathe. Everyone sighed in their hearts. He was indeed the younger brother that Yi Qingluo brought up. At such a young age, he had such an oppressive aura. If properly cultivated, in the future when he grew up, he would absolutely become an overlord. Sect elder, old grand madam, now. Is little you qualified? Yi Qingluo let go of Yi Fengyu's hand and put her hands behind her back, smiling brightly. As everyone knows, every patriarch of the four major sects is selected by the godly emperor that we protect. In every generation, there will be a Yi family descendant who will inherit the patriarch's legacy, which is the imprint of the godly emperor. Yi Qingluo's voice was calm and her enunciation was clear, narrating what everyone knew. This legend. In everyone's heart, it was just a legend. But today, they really saw the God Emperor's imprint on Yi Fengyu's forehead. Their hearts were all shocked. God Emperor's imprint. It really is the God Emperor's imprint. Elder Ancestor suddenly stood up from the soft chair. His hand that was holding onto the walking stick was also trembling non-stop. Tears welled up in his murky old eyes. She excitedly strode towards Yi Fengyu. The mark of the Divine Emperor. This generation of the Yi clan finally had someone with the Divine Emperor's mark. She had thought that Yi Tianquang's sins were too deep, causing this generation to lose the Divine Emperor's imprint and the recognition of the Divine Emperor. Because of this. That was why she felt uneasy because of Yi Qingluo's identity. He was afraid that Yi Qingluo's appearance was told to her by the Emperor of Gods through the God Emperor's imprint. The Three Springs sect might disappear from this world. Otherwise, how could the descendants of this generation have lost the mark of the Divine Emperor? When she saw the Divine Emperor's mark on Yi Fengyu's forehead, the old ancestor's heart was finally at ease. The person who has the Divine Emperor's mark is the successor chosen by the Divine Emperor himself. Old age is qualified. He is the most qualified to become. I don't believe it. Before the old ancestor could finish her words, she was interrupted by the sect elder's exasperated roar. Yi Qingluo, I have the right to suspect that you want 8th young master to become the patriarch and deliberately use the matter of the Divine Emperor's imprint to deceive me. Congratulations on inheriting the Three Springs sect, sect leader. Even the luxurious garden had been razed to the ground. Even if the succession ceremony was drenched in blood. However, it still couldn't suppress the joy that came from the bottom of everyone's heart. Without the interference of the sect's elders, the succession ceremony was extremely smooth. The sect elder appeared to be trembling with fear, as if he was afraid that Yi Fengyu would act on a whim and use him as an example. If it was in the past, the position of the sect elder could be said to be on the same level as the sect leader. Although he had no real power, the sect leader still had to give him face and seek his opinion on everything. But, this time, the sect leader was a difficult character to deal with. Behind him was an even more difficult and extremely arrogant and despotic Yi Qingluo. If these two juniors wanted to mess with him, they would absolutely not show any mercy. Chapter 21:14. After the succession ceremony ended, news of what had happened at the succession ceremony quickly spread. The mystery of Yi Qingluo's birth was also spread like wildfire. Some people were guessing who Yi Qingluo's biological father was. But there were also people who hated Yi Qingluo and started to ridicule her for not being a noble Yi family member and ridiculed her mother. But Yi Qingluo didn't bother about these. On the night when the succession ceremony ended, Yi Qingluo went to Bei Ming's room. In Bei Ming's room, she found the item that she used to exchange for Yi Fengyu's life. In the secret compartment, there was a well-kept wooden box. She could tell that Bei Ming often cleaned this box and was very attentive in taking care of it. Before she opened the box, Old Man Song's surprised voice rang in Yiqing Luo's mind, "Lass." Inside. There is a very familiar and strong presence inside. Yiqing Luo's hand which was holding the wooden box paused, very familiar. Yes. I definitely felt this presence somewhere before. But now, I can't remember. Old Man Song's spirit body came out from the azure dew bracelet. Old Man Song circled around the wooden box a few times. "Lass, this thing. If it really has something to do with your biological father, I'm afraid your future days will not be peaceful." Something that could make Old Man Song produce such a strong reaction. Yiqing Luo had a rough guess in her heart. Hearing Old Man Song's words, Yiqing Luo's fingers tightened. "I know, this body of mine, no matter if it's innate talent or profound jade heart. It's obviously different from ordinary people. Plus, she crossed over to this other world. Contracted the azure dew bracelet. Received Old Man Song's guidance. All showed that her background was extraordinary. It could be said that from the moment she found out that her profound jade heart was the one and only divine phoenix profound jade heart in the world. Yiqing Luo already had some suspicions. She wasn't a member of the Yi family. But today, she heard old Grand Madam and the rest personally said it. In other words, it confirmed her guess. "Old Man Song, don't worry, I'm not an impulsive person." Yiqing Luo held the wooden box tightly. "Even if I know the truth, I won't immediately search for my background. I won't act rashly before I'm strong enough to protect myself and the people around me." Yiqing Luo's eyes drooped as she gazed at the wooden box in her palm. Then, he put the wooden box into the profound phoenix ring. "Today's matter will definitely spread like wildfire. Many people will speculate about my background. I think I should wait until you feel that I'm strong enough before I take a look at it." The ancients often said that a tall tree attracts the wind. More and more people were paying attention to Yiqing Luo. This would make more and more people start to suspect Yiqing Luo. Previously there was Three Springs sect as a smokescreen, in addition to Dmo Xian's reputation, suppressing the reason of Yiqing Luo's outstanding innate talent. But, the news that Yiqing Luo was not a descendant of the Three Springs sect spread out. Yiqing Luo's innate talent was bound to be speculated by those with ulterior motives. As soon as Old Man Song touched the wooden box, he sensed the powerful aura inside. If someone were to find out, it would definitely be disadvantageous to Yiqing Luo. Placing the wooden box into the profound phoenix ring would conceal the box's aura. It's naturally the best that you can think this way. Old Man Song also heaved a sigh of relief. This old man was still thinking about how to persuade you to dispel the idea of searching for your background. Chapter 21:15. Old Man Song's eyes were filled with pity as he looked at the calm young lady. His heart was filled with heartache for her. And also filled with pride. She was indeed the young lady whom he fancied. She was able to maintain her calmness at any moment. A child with such a calm temperament, who remained unfazed in the face of danger. In future, she would definitely surpass his imagination. Old Man Song silently swore in his heart. As long as he was still able to exist in this world, he would protect this child. Yiqing Luo didn't know what Old Man Song was thinking about. After she kept the wooden box into the profound phoenix ring, she felt a strong force rushing into her blood vessels. It was only for a moment and it was suppressed by the profound phoenix ring. But that feeling, although it was only for a moment. Yiqing Luo still remembered that feeling. And she was even more certain that sealing this thing in the profound phoenix ring was the right choice. On a faraway mountain which was enshrouded in celestial qi. In front of a huge towering tree. one black and one white, were playing chess. Dong, the sound of chess pieces falling onto the chessboard was heard. That tall and straight man who was shrouded in a cloak, his fingers were stiff, still maintaining the posture of holding a chess piece. Opposite the cloaked man was a handsome gentleman in a white robe. The handsome gentleman looked at the cloaked man's black chess piece on the chessboard and smiled. "What happened? You can't even hold the chess pieces properly." The cloaked man's stiff fingers on the chessboard curled up one by one. "The plan has been disrupted." "There's actually someone who can disrupt your plan. Could it be that woman?" The handsome gentleman raised his brows in interest. The cloaked man's fingers clenched tightly. Under the cloak, that pair of treacherous cold eyes shot out a chilling intent. "That slut actually left that thing in the lower realm. That thing. If it sees the light of day again, the people in the god realm will definitely find out about Yi Qing Luo's whereabouts." Yi Qing Luo. The handsome gentleman murmured this name. His smile became more and more playful. "Is that the vessel that you keep?" The cloaked man didn't reply. He suddenly slammed the chessboard and stood up. In a blink of an eye, the cloaked man had already disappeared from the top of the mountain. The handsome gentleman held on to a faint smile. His mouth muttered these three words. "Yi Qing Luo. Yi Qing Luo. Nirvana Realm, Three Springs Sect." Yi Qing Luo just came out from the Baiming clan's room. He saw Yi Fengyu walking toward him. When he saw Yi Qing Luo, his eyes shone brightly as he took a quick step forward. "Sister, how is it? Do you know who your father is?" "It doesn't matter who my father is." Looking at his worried eyes, Yi Qing Luo smiled lightly. "No matter who it is, I will always be your sister." "You? Of course you are my sister." Yi Fengyu held Yi Qing Luo's wrist tightly. "Our mothers are from the same mother, we have the same blood flowing in our veins. You are my biological sister." Yi Qing Luo laughed lowly, raised her hand and rubbed the boy who was a head taller than her. "Silly Xiaoyu, don't you believe in your own mother? Mother is such a good woman, how could she betray Yi Tianquang, betray the path of women?" Yi Fengyu's expression stiffened. The hand which was grabbing Yi Qing Luo's wrist also paused for a moment. Yi Qing Luo's words, of course he had thought about it. In his memory, although his mother didn't like his father, but she would absolutely not do anything that violated the path of women. But, old Grand Madam personally admitted it. He and his sister were born from the same blood, but they were not biological siblings. But indeed, they were born from the same mother. In Yi Fengyu's heart, he was still unwilling to believe that his mother would betray his father. Chapter 21:16. Yi Qing Luo rubbed her brother's head hard. "Silly Xiaoyu, even if we don't have the same blood flowing in our bodies, we are still biological siblings. You will always be my younger brother." These ancient people did not know. As someone from the 21st century, how could she not understand this common sense? If her mother really was pregnant with her before Yi Tianquang returned to the mansion, after that, it would be impossible for her to get pregnant with Yi Fengyu. Between her and Yi Fengyu, there must be a child who wasn't her mother's biological child. Yi Fengyu was a descendant of the Yi family. That also meant that she wasn't born from her mother. As for why it turned out to be her and Yi Fengyu's twin, perhaps only mother would know the secret behind it. "Sister." After listening to Yi Qing Luo's words, Yi Fengyu's eyes became misty. "Yes, I will always be your brother." Yes, no matter what the truth was. The sibling relationship between him and his sister was real, and that was enough. "That's right, big sister," the old ancestor said. "She has something to talk to you about. She's waiting for you in the hall." Yi Fengyu suddenly recalled the reason why he came to look for Yi Qing Luo and lowered his voice. "Elder sister, old Grand Madam is getting on in years and everything she has done, although it's very unfair to you, but it's all for the sake of the Yi family. If it's possible, can elder sister not blame old grandmadam? Yi Fengyu knew that his request to Yi Qing Luo was too much. He had seen everything that old grandmadam had done to Yi Qing Luo in the past and that had aroused his anger. However, when he thought of the scene that the old ancestor had just witnessed, in the end, Yi Fengyu's heart softened. After all, this was his grandmother. It was his biological grandmother. I'm not asking you to tolerate her. After saying that, Yi Fengyu hurriedly added, I just wanted to say, if the old ancestor didn't target you, could big sister, I understand. Yi Qing Luo patted Yi Fengyu's shoulder, looking at his frightened look, she couldn't help but pull his face. I'm not a man-eating tiger. If she doesn't provoke me, I naturally won't intentionally provoke her. Moreover, I still want to ask her about the details of what happened back then. Yi Fengyu immediately beamed with joy. He knew that his sister would do what she promised him. He absolutely believed that the elder ancestor would no longer target his sister. The Three Springs sect and the Yi clan were either dead or crippled. He only had his ancestor and his sister as his relatives. She followed Yi Fengyu into the hall one after the other. There was only one person sitting in the hall. It was just the old ancestor alone. Yi Qing Luo squinted at old grandmadam and saw that on her aged face, her eyes were slightly red, apparently she had cried earlier. Yi Qing Luo could faintly guess what old grandmadam wanted her to discuss about. It seemed that the two of them had reached a consensus. He wanted to talk about what had happened in the past. This was good as well. If their goals were the same, at least they wouldn't have a falling out and Yi Fengyu would be stuck in the middle. Yi Qing Luo walked into the main hall and sat down on the soft chair on old grandmadam's right-hand side. Seeing Yi Qing Luo, old grandmadam hinted with her eyes. Yi Fengyu immediately walked to the door, and with a wave of his perception, he closed the door of the hall. Old grandmadam stood up and her hand which was holding onto the walking stick trembled slightly. Old 7, today it's all thanks to... Yi Qing Luo raised her hand and interrupted old grandmadam's words. Chapter 21:17. The old ancestor's face stiffened. Seeing this, Yi Fengyu was worried that the atmosphere would become stiff, so he immediately smiled and tried to smooth things over. Ancestor, elder sister is just worried about your health. So many things have happened today, ancestor must be tired. Elder sister just wants to finish talking so that you can rest. Old grandmadam stared at Yi Qing Luo without blinking. His sinister and treacherous eyes were shrouded in a complicated and incomprehensible light. She gradually loosened her grip on her walking stick. After a long while, she let out a heavy sigh and fell back into her seat. Old 7th, I know you are blaming me. Elder ancestor closed her eyes weakly. If I had known that you had no interest in Three Springs sect, I wouldn't have said such a thing in public. To spread the news that Yi Qing Luo wasn't a descendant of the Yi family. It wasn't only Yi Qing Luo's reputation that was ruined, it wasn't only the reputation of Yi Fengyu's mother. It was also the reputation of the entire Three Springs sect. After all, Yi Fengyu's mother had been dead for almost 10 years. She was also carrying the title of the mistress of the Yi family, Madame Yi. When Madame Yi was alive, she secretly had an affair with a mysterious man and gave birth to a baby girl. This made Three Springs sect become the laughingstock of the Nirvana realm. Moreover, old grandmadam wanted to make use of Yi Qing Luo's current status in the Nirvana realm to boost Three Springs sect's prestige. This idea was no longer feasible now. Since the matter has already happened, no matter how much you repent, you will not be able to erase what you have done. Yi Qing Luo's words were impolite, but her tone was extremely calm. Her tone was very calm. Ancestor, I'm sure you know why I came here. There's no need to say anything else. Just tell me the details of what happened back then. The elder ancestor's facial muscles trembled. His shriveled lips moved as if he wanted to say something. But when he met Yi Qing Luo's calm and clear eyes, all the words he wanted to say were stuck in his throat. Old Madam was deeply aware that she had let Yi Qing Luo down. If it wasn't for Yi Qing Luo, Three Springs sect would not only fall into the hands of an outer sect elder, more importantly, the Three Springs sect might really fall because of this. And she would personally destroy the eighth brother who was recognized by the Divine Emperor, towards Yi Qing Luo's attitude. The old ancestor didn't say anything in the end. She took a deep breath and calmed herself down. He then looked towards Yi Qing Luo, as he told her everything that he knew back then, in full detail. Things were roughly the same as what he had learned during the succession ceremony. Old Grand Madam then told Yi Qing Luo in detail what had happened. Yi Tianquang had been working in other continents for several months and hadn't returned to the Three Springs sect. At that time, the Three Springs sect was managed by the elder ancestor. One day, when Madame Yuchi was accompanying her ancestor for a stroll in the garden, she found Madame Yi acting mysteriously in the rockery in the garden. Madame Yi was obviously more flustered after being exposed by the great ancestor. Under Madame Yuchi's vague guidance, the grand elder ancestor thought of the words, cheating on a man. However, after a thorough investigation, the elder ancestor did not find any traces of other men in the rockery, although this matter was left unsettled. However, a seed of doubt was planted in the heart of the old ancestor. Naturally, he began to pay more attention to Madame Yi. The more he paid attention, the more he felt that Madame Yi was hiding a huge secret. The more he paid attention, the more he felt that Madame Yi was hiding a huge secret. Chapter 21:18. Until 2 months before Yi Tianquang was about to return to the Western continent, the elder ancestor discovered that Madame Yi's body was getting weaker and weaker, and she was retching from time to time. At first, he was able to appear at the family dinner at noon. However, after a long time, Madame Yi seemed to smell the delicacies on the table and began to vomit. In the end, he could only hide in his own courtyard, unable to go out. Madame Yuchi unintentionally mentioned that this was the same as when she was pregnant with Yi Qing Qian and Yi Qing Ling. The Grand Elder, who had suspected that Madame Yi was having an affair, immediately felt that Madame Yi was pregnant with another man's child. The more the old ancestor thought about it, the more he felt that his guess was correct. However, Madame Yi's methods were too brilliant. Even if a doctor came, there was no way to accurately diagnose that Madame Yi was pregnant. But the more he couldn't find anything, the more he couldn't. The Grand Elder became even more suspicious. Elder Ancestor thought that when Madame Yi's belly became bigger, nothing could be hidden anymore. Thus, after waiting for 2 months, Yi Tianquang returned to the Three Springs sect. During this period of time, Old Ancestor had been keeping an eye on Madame Yi, but he didn't find anything that could be used against her. She didn't see Madame Yi's belly getting bigger. After Yi Tianquang returned, the Old Ancestor wanted to find an opportunity to talk about this matter with his son. Who knew that before she could find her son, he heard his son going to Madame Yi's courtyard. He didn't leave the courtyard until the afternoon of the second day. This infuriated the concubines of the other 2 branches. Madame Yuchi was especially enraged and immediately ran to the elder ancestor to fan the flames. The old ancestor had originally been suspicious of Madame Yi. When he heard that his own son had actually stayed in Madame Yi's courtyard for a whole day, he couldn't help but secretly curse Madame Yi as a vixen. While dragging his own son, he told Yi Tianquang his own guess. Yi Tianquang didn't really care. He knew very well whether his woman was pregnant or not. However, the Grand Elder insisted that Madame Yi was having an affair and that she was pregnant with a bastard. Yi Tianquang was helpless. He could only tell the old ancestor why he had come to Madame Yi's courtyard. After that, the old ancestor no longer asked about this matter. In the blink of an eye, a month had passed. Then came the news that Madame Yi was pregnant. The more the old ancestor thought about it, the more she felt that Madame Yi had schemed everything. She wanted to give Yi Tianquang the child she had slept with another man. However, Yi Tianquang had already specifically warned them. He stopped her from acting rashly. The old ancestor could only endure it. Sure enough, Madame Yi gave birth prematurely in less than 8 months of pregnancy. This time, there was no need for Madame Yuqi to sow discord. The old ancestor couldn't believe Madame Yi. But after Yi Qing Luo was born. However, news came that Yi Fengyu was in a critical condition and was on the verge of death. This news made the Grand Elder, who wanted to find Madame Yi to test her blood to prove her innocence, confused. Adultery and pregnancy were all her guesses. She couldn't find any evidence. Furthermore, Yi Tianquang had spent the night in Madame Yi's courtyard after returning, so he was very certain that Madame Yi wasn't pregnant. It was highly possible that the child would really be the legitimate son of the Yi family. If he didn't save them, what should they do after harming the legitimate son of the Yi clan? Especially since the Divine Emperor's mark had yet to appear on the other young masters and ladies. Then, after much consideration, the elder ancestor decided to use the forbidden technique to save the son of the Yi clan. You're tuning in to the Journey of the Soul YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.